Think we're working. Happy Monday. If you're watching in the comments, let me know. If you're watching on a replay, let me know in the comments with hashtag replay. We'll give everybody a minute or two to get logged on and situated. I'll get myself situated. Okay. Why is the video not showing? I don't know what's happening. Melissa says it's okay. My Facebook feed is showing that it's going to start soon, but it hasn't actually started yet. So what is happening? Okay. Holly, blustery night. Do you see me? Good. Okay. I just can't find my own thing on here. All right. Let's try this again. Video has not started. Why? Hi, Mary. Happy Monday. Working on a test knit. Awesome. Ah, there we go. Now I see me. Just took me a minute. Okay. Holly, working on the mistaken rib hat. Excellent. Nicole, working on the escape shawl crochet. Easy V sweater. Excellent. Linda, yeah, it's crazy. I don't know if you're not in Michigan. I don't know what the Holly, where I know you said you're in the car. Where are you? Are you back in Michigan or are you somewhere else? I don't know if it's blustery across the country or if it's just here in Michigan or the Midwest. I don't know. The drifts on the roads today were crazy. Brenda, finished your tracks. Awesome. You said you were going to get it done this weekend. Good job. Julie, working on your hexagon sweater. Okay. Cool. Hemlock. Okay, yeah. Well, welcome back. Welcome back into town. The wind probably blew you guys back. As a reminder, we are both on Facebook and on YouTube. They're two different broadcasts. So if you have a problem with a feed on one, you can always hop over to the other. So Melissa usually is pretty good about posting links to both of those things. I'm slowly working on trying to streamline things a little bit, but it takes time. So right now we're doing Facebook and YouTube both. Weather was nicer in Oregon. Yeah. I know. Hi, Sherry. At least we know to expect the wind and the cold and the snow. It's crazy the amount of snow people are getting like down south, and Florida is getting like, I don't know, the amount of snow they're getting in Louisiana. Hi, Noel. At least some people here in Michigan know how to drive on snowy roads. Man. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to Monday Motivation. Today is January 27th, 2025. My name is Kristen. I'm the owner of the Little Yarn Shop located in downtown Saginaw, Michigan, inside the SVRC Marketplace. Marketplace hours are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our shop is open an hour earlier than that. We are open 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Wednesday through Saturday. As a reminder, if you're stuck on a project and you need help, Deb is here Monday nights. Ashley is usually here. She's not here this week, but she's usually here Monday nights as well to help out from 6:30 to 8:30 in the front lobby. They have drop-in help. It's $10 a session. And it doesn't matter if it's a project from the shop or not from the shop. They will get you back on track or help you fix your mistakes, whatever it is. They're here for you on Monday nights. Starting sometime, probably the end of, hi Mama, the end of February, Deb and Ashley are working on a class that is sort of a good technique a sweater technique class. So it will probably be Thursday evenings. I think that's kind of what we're aiming for. I don't have an exact start date yet because they're still kind of in the process of working out exactly how the class is going to operate. Yeah, Melissa's working on a cowltopus. Yes, I got to see Melissa and Tim yesterday and hand deliver some yarn, which is fun. Finally see them. So this technique class that Deb and Ashley are going to host is going to go over a few knitting techniques like stranding, so multiple strands of yarn being held at the same time to do color work. Also steeking, if you wanted to do steeking is where you intentionally cut your yarn, where you knit a sweater as a pullover, but you turn it into a cardigan by cutting it down. Or sometimes steeking is done on the sleeves. Oh, I just got fireworks. I don't know how that happened. That was fun. Um, so the class is using a pattern called Loewy's sweater. The full pattern is called a 2-yoke sweater. And then it says something else, and then it says Loewy's sweater. So the sweater has 2 different options for a color work yoke, but it's more of a formula than it is a written out pattern. So that's where a lot of the technique is going to come into play with choosing your yarn, swatching, finding a fabric that you like, taking your measurements and knitting a sweater to fit you the way you want it to fit you. This is a great, I mean, it's a lot of great techniques for this class specifically, but also even if you want to know moving forward how to modify another pattern. If there's a sweater that you like, but you want to use a yarn that's not the same weight, or you're not getting gauge, you don't like the fabric that the gauge calls for, that sort of thing. So it's going to be a pretty cool class. It may actually be something something I might stick around for because I've not done steeking. I'm not the greatest at color work. It's holding multiple strands, knitting with multiple strands. So maybe a class that I partake in as well. So as that gets closer, we'll get you more information. But if that's something you might be interested in, you can look at the patterns. Holly, awesome. Look at the pattern, and we're using Cascade 220 fingering, which is a non-superwash fingering weight yarn. And we've got some of that here in the store. If we need to, we can order more for people, but it's kind of fun to start playing around with colors, as I think it uses five or six different colors. So for most of them, you only need 150-gram skein, and then you need like a main color for the body. So as I get more information, I will pass that on to you all. Also classes February 8th, which is a Saturday, a week from this coming Saturday. Nicole is starting her next session of the Crochet Basics and Beyond class. So that is a 6-week class, the same as our Knitting Basics and Beyond. It starts February 8th. It'll go for 6 weeks. They meet Saturdays from 10:30 to 12:30. I think they will meet in the front lobby. Typically for Saturday classes, everybody just kind of checks in here in the shop and then finds out where classes are happening depending on the events for the day or whatever. I will not be around that day because that will be one day post-surgery, but I'm happy to get it back on the schedule and get some crochet classes rolling. So that is, Nicole teaches a scarf class that goes over granny squares, but also some single crochet, half double crochet, some cross stitches, that sort of thing. So that is the crochet class. All right, so that is the events that I wanted to talk about. I am wearing the Shape. I feel like I wore it not that long ago, but I was looking through my notes and I couldn't see anything about it, so maybe I didn't. This is by Heidi Kiermeier. So Shape uses calls for a DK weight yarn. I used Barocco Remix Light. So one of the fun things about Remix Light, sometimes we have come in and have people come in and they're looking for the regular remix because Barocco makes it in a worsted weight, sport slash DK weight, and chunky. So we carry the chunky and we carry the sport slash DK weight of remix. The lighter weight Barocco Light, Remix Light, is twice the yardage and half the diameter of the regular worsted remix. So if there's a pattern you find that uses just plain old worsted Barocco remix, you can use Remix Light and hold two strands together. Which we have kind of said before, I hold two strands of fingering or hold two strands of sport weight together and you kind of get a worsted weight yarn. But this is just the Remix Light the way it is and in two colors. It calls for 850 to 1800 yards. The size I did was the small 2. The way she does it is like an S1, S2, M1, M2. It has positive ease built in. So this is a 40-inch bust and I knit it to the pattern specifications. So if you wanted it longer, always take into consideration, you need more yarn if you want it longer, if you want longer sleeves, but I love the length of 3/4 length sleeves. And it starts with these cool little triangles. So you do 2 of these and then you pick up on either side to form the front and the back. It looks like it's a seamed piece, but it's not. Everything is done seamlessly. So modularly, basically, once you're doing those, you're picking up and knitting one way or the other. You're picking up and knitting the sleeves down. So there's no seaming to have to do when you're all done. The collar rolls, that is intentional. One thing I would say is it is more of a boat neck, which I guess kind of goes with the whole ship shape theme of things. I have a tank on under this, which of course you can kind of see. But yeah, Abby, I thought it was just a fun little, something a little different than just a plain old striped top. I do love me some stripes. So it just makes it a little more fun to knit on and just adds a little bit more interest. You could very easily, if the wide neck like this bothers you, you could very easily afterwards go back and pick up to make a smaller neckline. But I like it the way it is. I just didn't plan for it in my wardrobe in getting ready to come into the shop today. Otherwise I would have had something different on under it. But this is the ship shape. It wears like a comfy, I want to say like boyfriend sweatshirt. I feel like in high school, I had a boyfriend who loaned me one of his sweatshirts and it was really well worn and just like cozy and comfy. And that's how I feel like Remix feels when it's knit up. So I would definitely recommend it and do more things with Remix Light. I think this is the only thing I've made with it. Yeah. Karen's done quite a few things with the Remix Light. I just have been kind of lax on it. So that's what I'm wearing. I am working on my Salty Days sweater. So I showed this last week. There's my beginning picture. Here we are. This is really interesting construction of this. So the Salty Days sweater by Kutavakika, or her name is Veronica Lindberg, but I guess she has a YouTube channel and is known as a designer as Kutavakika, which I'm not going to spell for you, but you can see it on the Ravelry page. But it's really cute. It's got this pattern through the body of the sweater. So last week, I think I was working on the panel on the back, which I will show you. So starts up here. This is your cast on, these stitches across here, and then you build out. Can I show this? There we go. You're building out and down this way and that way until you get to the point where you would join for the front and the back. Then you end up picking up across here to knit the shoulders. So what's kind of neat is it looks like this is the back of the sweater and it looks like raglan increases for the sleeves, but that's only on the back. On the front, it's just kind of a seamless 1x2 rib that comes up and over the shoulders. So it's coming along pretty quick. So I got the first set of lace diamonds done, cables done. I'm almost done with the second set of diamonds. I'm on the last lace row there. So this was going to be a Valentine's sweater, and I'm pretty sure I could get it done for Valentine's Day. Although it's not like I'll be going anywhere. At that point, I probably will still be sitting home on the couch going stir crazy, but at least my plan is anyway to get a lot of bookwork done and to get a lot of knitting done. But because this is on size 9 needles, it is going really, really quickly. Probably one of the things I will not do is use the tiny needles that she calls for the ribbing. So she calls for size 2.5, US 2.5 needles for the ribbing. I think that will be way too tight, even with a twisted rib. I mean, it looks, if you look at her pictures, it looks snug, but it doesn't look super tight. Like down here at the bottom, it doesn't look super tight. And I feel like if I did those tiny needles like that, not only would it pull it in too much, but I feel like it wouldn't have a whole lot of stretch to it. So, oh my gosh, Mama, it's so soft. So the yarns I'm using are Malabrigo Arroyo, which is 100% superwash merino DK weight. And then I'm holding it with, instead of the mohair that they suggest, I'm holding it with the Surrey alpaca. So Plymouth Surrey Stratus. So these are the two that I have. So it's this pinky Rosalinda and this really pale purple. And you get this just beautiful, beautiful sweater. Again, I think I mentioned a little bit last week, don't be afraid of a slightly variegated yarn like this. It's still, I'd say it's kind of a cross between a tonal and a variegated because it's all very muted and it doesn't at all take away from the cables or the patterning in the sweater. It's a really fun knit. It really just does feel like a cloud. Melissa, not as bad as mohair. I didn't mind the touch. Yep, Melissa's not a big fan of fuzzy yarns, but she did actually touch it. She felt it, and she didn't squirm too terribly much. But I, even just having it on my lap while I'm knitting it, it's so soft and so warm. Even if I don't get it done before summer, which I'm sure I will, but even if I didn't, it's not like we don't have more cold winters coming. So, I'm pretty happy with the progress on that. So really, I am like here on the sweater. I have that much more of the body to do. And then the sleeves, which have kind of a drop shoulder on them. So it won't be a terribly long process to knit the sleeves. My one concern is it seems like the sleeve holes are pretty large. When I tried it on, it seemed like they dipped down pretty far. So maybe next week. Yeah, but Abby, weren't we trying to play around? Did you bring it in the one time that we were trying to play around with something to do with the mohair? I can't remember if that was mohair or if that was a wool that you got from somewhere. So next week I will still be doing my live, and maybe by that point I will have the body done or close to done so I can try it on and show you kind of where the sleeves, because these sleeves are pretty fitted. The armholes on this Salty Days one that I'm working on right now are pretty low. But so maybe I'll just hold this up to it and kind of compare it. So that is something that we'll recommend to people. So maybe if you aren't in the store very often, you haven't heard us say this, but I've probably said it before too on the videos. But if you're trying to figure out what size sweater to knit, go through your closet and find a top that you really like the fit of you, and you want to knit a sweater in a similar fit. Find a sweater or a top that you really like the fit of and take the measurements of that. Lay it out, measure across the chest, measure the armhole depth, the arm length, the depth, the arm side. if there's any tapering in it, it just kind of like, keep a log of those things. So not only your measurements, but measurements of things you like the fit of. So it's kind of a quick reference when you're looking at a pattern. We still have people come in, and when we say what size, we ask what size they're going to make, they'll say, oh, well, I usually wear a large. That doesn't mean anything when it comes to patterns like this. There's so much possibility with every pattern to be slightly different. So like in this one, the finished bust goes from a 40 up to an 80-inch bust. And she says it recommends 6 to 8 inches of ease. So measuring a top that you like helps you pick what size you would do. Like I'm doing the small in this. I normally wouldn't do a small, but what I'm knitting is is supposed to be a 44-inch finished bust. And that's going to be plenty. It's going to be plenty oversized for what I want. It's going to have more ease in it than I want, or the right amount of ease, I guess. If I knit a medium like I would normally knit for myself, it would be too much ease. Yes. Finish for it. Okay, yeah. Melissa, something you wouldn't touch all the time. Of course, you would think that. So that's what I'm working on. Next up, I just came across, well, actually it was in my favorites, so it's one that I must have come across at some point in the past and forgotten about. I am in hat making mode. I want to make another hat. And I came across the pattern called the white frost hat. I just find it hard to be knit. Yes. Andrew Myers asked, App and Glow would have just the right amount of mohair. Yeah, knitting mohair on its own is quite a feat. Ripping mohair is also not the easiest thing in the world to do. We have recommended to people. Here's another little quick tip for you. If you have to rip anything out that has mohair or anything really fuzzy, throw it in the freezer. That kind of stiffens up some of the fibers and makes it not quite so grabby. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it can't hurt by any stretch unless unless something happens to it in the freezer, but don't let that happen. So yeah, mohair, things like that. If you have to rip it out, throw it in the freezer for a little while. Getting it cold kind of makes it a little bit easier to pull out. So the White Frost hat is a free pattern. She has, there's like a more slouchy and a less slouchy version. And because I have in mind that this is going to be a gift for somebody, I may deviate from the pattern a little bit. It calls for a DK weight yarn, but I did see that people have used Malabrigo Rios, which is what I want to do because I have this skein of Scorpio. You can't see the label that way, can you? Scorpio. And it is Rios, and it's like this denim-y black blue color. I think it would be really fun. It was in your library. Planning to make it for your nephew for Christmas. For your soon-to-be nephew. Awesome. You were planning. Well, there's next Christmas. So it's a cabled hat. I do see, and just glancing through the pattern quickly, it looks like it's translated from another language. So I hesitate when I recommend free patterns sometimes because often that means it's not been test knit or tech edited. There are quite a few pages of projects. I kind of glanced through some people's notes. And I glanced through the pattern. She has kind of a brief version of, okay, if you're an intuitive knitter, this, and this are happening. Here are the charts, go to it. And then she has it written out row by row. I did see somebody comment, the charts are only every other row. So there are rest rows in between that she doesn't put on the charts. So that's something to keep in mind. She also has, because they're traveling cables, translated from German. Okay. Because there are traveling cables, there are some points where you're using the last 2 stitches from the previous round and the first 2 stitches of the next round to do your cable. So not difficult things, but there are some little hiccups in that pattern that I would just want people to be aware of. but I think it's a really neat looking hat. I actually did see one of the projects was in this color and I liked how it looked. So I think it'd be neat. And apparently I'm on a cable kick now. I've said for the longest time that I'm not a big fan of knitting cables, and here I am on my third sweater with cables and talking about another cabled hat. So I guess that's my my present knitting situation. So that's going to be the next one. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is it looks like she's got the original version in like a white color and then a beanie version. But in reading her notes, it actually says the beanie version is longer. I would have assumed it would be shorter, less slouchy, but apparently that's not the case. So I may download both because they are, like I said, they are free patterns. I may download both versions and just kind of look at them a little bit and see which version I want to do, because I don't think I want to make it a super slouchy one. Maybe I do. Yeah, we'll see. So that's going to be maybe next on my list of projects. There is, since I'm going kind of deviating today and talking about patterns that are not enabled for in-store sales. There is a designer right now who has most of her patterns are 70% off. I don't know what that means in terms of if she's not offering support in the future for them, if she's just rebranding or what she's doing. But so the designer's name is Tatiana Charalampidi. But Melissa will link to the Oscar Romper Oscar is what it is called. If you look at her patterns, if you look at that pattern, you can click on her designs and see the other ones. Yeah, Melissa, I agree. The blue one looks like it's longer, but that's the one she calls a beanie, which is a little bit odd. So she's calling a beanie a slouch hat. So Nima Knit is kind of her is the designer's name, but she's got this little romper called the Romper Oscar, and it's from newborn sizes up to larger sizes. And I think it kind of looks a little funny on the kid in the main picture, but if you scroll through and look at some of the other images, it looks really, really cute on babies and toddlers. I think it's just a sweet, sweet pattern, but all of her patterns, or most of her patterns anyway, are 70% off right now. If you look at the price, it doesn't show it when you look at just the buy it now price, but if you click on buy it now and it goes to add it to your cart, it will show the discounted price. You don't need a coupon code or anything. Couldn't find the pattern you showed last week your mom knit for you. I'll see if we can link that for you, Teresa. I'm assuming you're talking about this guy, this little scarf. The something scarflet. I can't remember what it was called, but I bet Melissa will be able to find it for you because she's amazing like that. Or I can look at my notes here. Look at this. Noel scarflet is what it was called. So typically we encourage that that I try and knit patterns where the designer has enabled the pattern for in-store sales. Not all patterns on Ravelry are patterns that we can sell through the shop. When we sell you a pattern through the shop, it costs you the same. If it's an $8 pattern, it costs you $8 to buy it from us. It costs you $8 to buy it from the designer. We get a little bit of a discount through Ravelry, so there's an incentive in that way, but also that allows us to be able to put that pattern in your Ravelry library. It sends it to your email if you give us that info, and it allows us to pull up the PDF of the pattern and print it for you, which we will do for 25 cents a page. We have no problem printing patterns for you. They're beautiful. They're in color. They're on good paper. You get a sheet protector if you want it. If the pattern is not enabled for in-store sales and you buy it on your own, we're not able to print it for you, which sometimes causes a little bit of a hiccup, unless it's one that we also own as just personally in our shop Ravelry account. The other thing that it allows us to do is it gives us a little bit of clout, I guess, with some of the designers when they see shops selling multiple copies of one of their patterns or more of their patterns. It allows the designers to see that shops are talking about their patterns, like when we do anything with the Stephen West or Marie Greens, the Casapinkas, any of those knit-alongs, they can see which shops are selling copies of their patterns, and that helps us a little bit in the future too, with partnerships, things like that. And also, if what you're working on is something that we have made here in the shop, we usually are more familiar with it and know more of the ins and outs, tips and tricks, that sort of thing, that if you're just coming in saying, hey, I found this pattern on Ravelry, I want to make it, we don't necessarily know anything about it. And we're kind of starting blindly, just like you are. And what I will say is when that happens, one of the first things I will do is read through the Ravelry description. I will go and see how many projects there are, how many people have made it, how many other comments there are on projects about maybe issues they've had, or how much they've enjoyed it, or how much they are frustrated with it, things like that. The Ravelry projects pages are really, really beneficial for things like that. So, like I said, I saw it was in one of the comments for the White Frost hat that I saw somebody say, don't do what I did. Make sure you realize that the charts are only every right, or not, I can't say right side row because it's all done in the round, but every other row. And then you have a rest row where in one little line, she says, number rows, you knit the knits and purl the pearls. So things like that. It's really worth going through, reading other people's notes to see. Plus, the other beautiful thing about looking at other projects is being able to visualize what a pattern is going to look like with different color combinations, or in a different color if it's just a one color project. Might give you a completely different view of a pattern, more than just what the featured photos are that the designer chose, because what they think are the best featured photos might not appeal to you. So something to think about. But in general, when I'm not talking about patterns that are on sale, because I do love a good sale just like anybody else does. So I want to pass that on to you. Or you know, a free pattern that I kind of talk about with some caveats. We like to choose the patterns that are paid for patterns, because that typically means that the designer has taken the time to have it test knit and tech edited, and is offering a value and we're purchasing something of value. So something I touched a little bit on earlier when I was talking about Deb's class, but wanted to kind of point it out, and it was kind of well, so my mom had suggested I read the article in the Knitty magazine, this last issue, about once you've knit for a while, you pretty much know all the things, right? And how wrong that is. And so I want to make sure that most people understand that even though we've been knitting for a long time, it's always something to learn. Karen's always learning things. Deb and I are always learning things. This thistle yoke sweater that Karen's working on right now, she has encountered stitch terms that she's not had before. And she's working on a cabled sweater that has a different design technique or a different construction that she hasn't done before. So there's no point when we're going to know it all. And that's perfect. That's amazing. That's how it should be. If you find a pattern that you really love and you want to make it in all the colors and make multiples of it, that's awesome. more power to you. You're still going to learn a little bit with each time that you make it, or you can modify it. Sometimes patterns are a lot like cooking recipes where I like to make it the way it's written once. And then from there, things you can modify, things you should stick to keep kind of the base the same. Um, but we're always learning. There's always something that's going to trip us up a little bit, whether that's, and this is funny because this is what a lot of what the article talks about is sometimes we get too overconfident with, oh, I know what the pattern's going to say. I'm pretty sure. And Karen, if you've been in the shop, you've heard Karen say she knits more by sight and by looking at the pictures than she does actually reading the pattern. And yeah, that gets you into trouble sometimes because things might be done a little bit differently. And, but each time we make a mistake, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to learn something. It's an opportunity to practice repairing mistakes. When I was working on this sweater, the Salty Days sweater, this cable down here is a 2/3 cable. So you slip two and you hold them to the front, knit three, and then knit the two off the cable. At one point I had it using 6 stitches. At one point I had it using the wrong 5 stitches. At one point I had one going the wrong direction. All of those are opportunities to practice fixing mistakes. So the reason we're good at helping you fix your mistakes is because we're constantly practicing on our own knitting, on other people's knitting. And it's just yarn, it's just needles. So don't take yourself too seriously with any of this either. So one of these cables, one of these cables was the wrong direction, and I didn't realize it until I was on my next cable, and it was every 4 rows. So I had to drop down 4 rows in order to reverse the direction of the cable. I'm always going to try it because I wasn't going to leave it the way it was. It had some weird S instead of being a crossover. And I'm always going to try and drop down and fix it. Worst case scenario, I have to rip it back and go from that point and move forward. So why not take the time to pull my needles out, drop those stitches down, and try and rework them in the proper way. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then I have to rip it back, and I'm no further behind than I would have been otherwise. Abby, question about color work. Talk about color dominance sometimes. Why does it happen and how do you prevent it? Like I said, I'm by no means an expert on stranded color work and using 2 colors. I do know that it does matter which yarn you hold in which hand if you are knitting that way. Some people pick up and drop, and I don't know necessarily how to avoid it with that as much as I do with the 2 strands, one in each hand. For me, I know the strand I hold in my left hand is going to be my dominant color because my tension is looser with my left hand than it is with my right, which means every stitch I knit with my yarn in my left hand is going to be a little bit bigger, a little bit looser. The yarn I hold in my right hand is going to be a little more snug. It's going to go to the background. What I have read is whatever color is more prominent in that row is the one to hold in your left hand. I don't know if that's different for people who typically English throw versus continental picking. That's a good question. If any of you are color work experts, like Joyce, I didn't see that Joyce was on here tonight, but or even Julie. Julie, you do a lot of color work too. So I'm curious what you think if you have input on that too. And maybe I'll do a little polling here in the shop and see. I'll ask Deb what she thinks about it too. I don't know that there's necessarily a way to prevent it though. Very good question. Okay, so yeah, Pam said it's best way to learn. Absolutely. Best way to learn is just by trying it, practicing. Um, oh, I did want to kind of talk about some of the movement within the marketplace. A few of you have been asking for a while what's happening outside our door where, oh, cool. Melissa found a yarn about color dominance. There we go. Valerie B's Cream Cakes, which had been kind of down the hall toward the credit union, is moving into the space where the t-shirts were right outside our door. And things are finally happening. She had to wait for the health department to come through and do her initial inspection. He'll have to do another one as we get closer, as she gets closer to actually reopening. But things are moving. She started moving shelving around. She's bringing her equipment over. So I'm staring out the door right now at her space, and there's stuff out there, which is awesome. So she has plans to do like fancy sandwiches, breakfast pastries, specialty coffees. We cannot wait for all of that to get moving. Craving Cookies, I think, is getting close to having their new space up and going, although right now their space is just full of boxes. I'm not quite sure what is happening with that, but hopefully soon she gets that up and going. Um, yeah, I think that's it for tonight, everybody. I'm gonna have to go back and read that article Melissa posted about color dominance because I'm curious about that as well. Something I need to practice a little bit more. I hope everybody has a good evening and a good week. And it feels a little bit like it's cooled down in the shop. It's not as warm as it was this past week in here, but still, I do recommend if you're coming in to shop or to hang out, dress in layers. It's probably going to be warm in here, especially if you're going to wear any of your knits. Um, yeah, I do have tension rings for color work too. We used to have some of those. I think they're still here somewhere. So have a good week. I will be doing my live again next Monday at 7, and then probably not for the rest of February, depending on how much I'm up and about post-surgery. Which it's scheduled for the 7th. So that's coming up in less than 2 weeks, you guys. But it'll be fine. I've already been through it once, so it'll be fine. It's just my hip. Prevent, I think, to do this, you hold the contrast color under under the main color. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love it. I'd love if for people who are not watching live and you're watching this on the replay, please continue to put comments in and let us know if you've got tips and tricks too, or if you have other questions that you want us to address in the future. Put that in the comments too. We'll try and do the best. I wanna talk about things that you all want to hear about. So all right. So I hope everybody has a good week. If we don't see you here in the shop this week, I will see you back here next Monday at 7 o'clock. So yeah, have a great week and we'll see you all very soon. All right. Bye-bye.